When I first read over the Nacirema articles, I was definitely tricked into believing it was describing some kind of crazy culture I'd never heard of before. I will say that fairly quickly I was able to draw a few connections after reading about the MIGs and plastic surgeries. But I still never fully connected that every aspect described in the article was a part of the everyday life of an American. Obviously, we know that the descriptions used in the article were very extreme interpretations of our lives, but I found it interesting to think about how things can look incredibly different when looking from an outsider's perspective with no backstory. Once we fully discussed all of the elements in our daily lives, it made me begin to consider my initial thoughts when viewing others. I found myself to be very quick to judge, thinking that things like the holy mouthmen made no sense, even though it's a description of the dentist I visit frequently. By experiencing this realization of how a different perspective can completely change the meaning behind a daily practice, I'm now able to recognize how to have an open mind to things that are new to me. Because even though I may not understand it, I might just be looking at it in a different way because of my past experiences and beliefs. Once a year, when the heat is at its peak and the days are longest, the Americans partake in a tribal ritual to celebrate their ancestral beginnings. The streets and people are decorated from head to toe in the native colors, many waving tribal cloths in the air. They gather in crowds around their dwellings, each family providing an edible substance for the table in which they all share food from. The favorite delicacy is a compressed animal meat which is then set on fire and consumed to keep spirits away. At the end of this tribal gathering, the crowds commence to peaceful war as they set the streets and sky on fire once the sun has gone down. This event, being the 4th of July, directly correlates to American values as it represents our freedom, which is perhaps the single most important right we stand beside. The original traditions of the 4th of July were much more independence-based than what we know today. Back then, people would hold mock funerals for King George III and would fire cannons and muskets. Ships' cannons would fire a 13-gun salute in reference to the 13 colonies. What we know today still has a focus of independence, but it's more of a background thought to family barbecues, parties, and who has the best fireworks. These changes are more detrimental to American culture than they are positive, because while they do hold positive qualities, such as families spending time together, we seem to be losing the American value of what it truly means to be free. The majority of Americans have only ever known freedom without cost, so it's very easy for us to take our rights for granted, even unintentionally. According to an article posted on History.com, the 4th of July traditions of today have a major focus of leisure activities and a common occasion for family get-togethers, often involving fireworks and outdoor barbecues. This description varies from the origin of the holiday's traditions, which used to be primarily centered around honoring the sacrifices made for our freedom. While this is still something highly valued by Americans, the same level of honor is not applied today as it was in the past. I believe it is greatly important for Americans to bring back the level of honor we formerly applied to our independence, seeing as how it's what we used to and still continue to fight for on a daily basis, and that is the most important aspect of our culture. Overall, after reading about the Nacirema culture and being surprised to learn that it's the culture I've grown up in, I now have a better understanding of how to respect another person's culture by keeping an open mind. I realize that just because something sounds unusual to me doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. In fact, I might just be looking at it from the wrong perspective.